Hi everyone, Cam here from YesAuto, and today I'm going to be driving this thing, the Volkswagen Tiguan R. Now the R name was reserved for VW's hatchbacks, the Golf R and also the estate version, but it started giving the R treatment to some of its other products recently. And the Tiguan R is the first of its kind. So what I want to find out today is, does it capture the magic of the super hatch? But before I get into the review, remember to hit the like button and subscribe for more awesome videos just like this one. So the Tiguan R gets a pretty substantial makeover over the regular Tiguan. So it's based on the facelifted version of the car, which came out towards the end of last year. But we get this new front bumper with these kind of cool little flicks up here that are very similar to that on the Golf R, and you also get it on the R-Line version of this car too. But what you don't get on the R-Line is more black trim. So you've got black around there and also around these vents as well, and those are real vents, not fake. Moving further around, we've got these huge 21-inch wheels, but in typical Volkswagen fashion, a lot of the sporty editions are all pretty subtle. So there's a small R badge on the front and just a tiny little one back here as well. But it's the back of the car really that sets the R's apart from the standard cars. So we've got a small little spoiler up here, and there's no performance pack, so we don't get a bigger wing at the back like you do on the Golf R. But what you do get are 4 rocket launcher exhausts, and they look so cool. It's so funny to see a family SUV with these massive rocket launchers at the back of it. Now, speaking of upgrades, you can actually get a beefier exhaust for your Tiguan R, and it's made by Krapovich. The only problem is it costs £3,155, so you've got to really want a raspier note than what you get on the stock car. But those aren't the only mechanical upgrades that you get on the Tiguan R, of course. We've got a beefier suspension system that lowers the car by 10mm. Adaptive dampers now come as standard, and that's an £800 optional extra on the new Golf R. You get beefier brakes as well, which have a fair amount of stopping power, but you also get torque vectoring. So what that does is the onboard computer can modulate the torque between each wheel to give you maximum grip. So if it feels as though it needs a little bit more power sent to the rear right wheel, it'll do so. Of course, what sets an R apart from a base version is the engine, and we've got the same motor as we have in the Golf R. It's VW's tried and tested 2-litre turbo unit producing 316 bhp and 420 Nm of torque, which is exactly the same as what you get on the new Golf R. In fact, it's actually a little bit more powerful than an Audi S3, which uses exactly the same engine. Now, it's connected up to a 7-speed DSG gearbox, and while the old Golf R came with a manual, the new one doesn't, and the same thing applies to the Tiguan R. You only get the DSG. However, that does mean it's really quick in a straight line. 0 to 62 takes 4.9 seconds, which is 0.2 seconds slower than the Golf, but then again, it is a bigger and heavier car, and top speed is limited to 155 miles an hour. Now, we've already done a review of the Tiguan. In fact, we actually looked at the R-Line, which takes quite a lot from the Tiguan R, and you can watch that by clicking the link in the top right-hand corner. So in here we have quite a sporty feeling cabin. These seats are actually slightly different to the ones that you get in the R-Line, although they do come with cloth in the centre, and you get this kind of nice suede Alcantara feel on the side for a bit of grip if you're putting this around a lap of the Nürburgring. And there's also fake leather around the edges as well, so it means that the seats are vegan friendly. We also have a nice sporty steering wheel with these really nice grips at the side. Nice big paddles back here as well. These are actually bigger than what you get on Audi's RS models, so you feel like you're in a proper performance car. And there's also a little R badge at the bottom, just to remind you that you're in the hot R. We've also got a bit of blue stitching around the gear selector down here too, and something that you get on this model, you actually get a button for the driver mode, so you have comfort, sport and track, There's no drift mode in here like you get on the Golf R if you go for the R Performance Pack. It's just not available on the Tiguan. But we also have different modes as well for the all-wheel drive system. So we've got snow, road, there's off-road, and then there's also off-road expert. Although I don't really think you'll be taking your Tiguan R around a mountain. Now that can all be accessed through this infotainment system, but what I find a little bit strange is that VW has two infotainment systems in its older, slightly older generation cars. You've got to bear in mind that this is the facelifted Tiguan, which came out a few years ago. So we have a slightly smaller display with two physical dials, one for the volume and one for adjusting things on the radio. But you can pay a little bit more money for the Pro system, which goes to a completely touch-sensitive infotainment system. And I find that a bit odd because this is the top spec car. You can't spend any more money on a Tiguan than going for the Tiguan R, but they still give you the cheaper infotainment system. And it's the same with other bizarre things in here as well. Like there's no wireless charging. If you want wireless charging, it's a £425 option. Why doesn't that come as standard? It just seems like a really bizarre choice. And that brings me on to price. So if you want a Tiguan R, prices start at £46,000, making it around £7,000 more expensive than the Golf R. Of course, you get a lot more practicality and a ginormous boot, and there's also sliding rear seats as well. But what it does mean is that it's actually in really close competition with the entry-level Porsche Macan. And what would you rather go for? A Tiguan R or spend a couple more £1,000 and get a Porsche? I think I would rather the Porsche, but it really depends on how this thing drives. So let's go take it out on the road. So we're going to start things off in comfort mode just to feel how normal and Tiguan-y it can feel. And it comes as very little surprise that this feels just like a regular Tiguan. Now it really doesn't feel all that fast when you've got it in comfort mode, but I've got it on a road at the moment that is very bumpy and would absolutely destroy your back if you were in a proper hot hatch. And at the moment, the Tiguan is pretty settled. A few bumps here and there, I'm kind of being thrown up and down a little bit. But that being said, it feels pretty standard Tiguan. I've had enough of that then, and let's go and put it at least into sport mode. Now, sport is essentially the car's normal mode, and it is a lot more responsive. This feels like a proper R now. The suspension is a little bit stiffer, the throttle response is a lot sharper, and I can hear the engine a little bit more as well. My goodness, this is a quick car. I want to put it into race then and get the full effect. Now the exhaust note gets really boomy, but there is an element of piped in exhaust. You can actually deactivate it if you go into the individual car mode. But it's not that as though it sounds bad. It's kind of a mix of like a really refined V8 and a 5-cylinder bauble. It does sound quite nice, even if it is fake. Now, of course, we've got a 0 to 62 on this car of 4.9 seconds. So I'm just going to go and put that to the test now on this dual carriageway and go. That's 60. My goodness, this is a very fast car for what is essentially a family SUV. My goodness, that's ridiculous. You do get a real lurch when pulling out of a junction like that, and you actually have launch control on here, so you can go into the computer, deactivate the stability control, and when you do that, you can actually engage launch control, which is really funny for smoking sports cars away at a set of traffic lights. So how does the drive compare to a Golf R? Well, on the surface, it feels very similar. Again, all the mechanicals in this car are very similar to what you get in the Golf R. So naturally, they feel almost identical. It's only really in the finer details that you can tell some of the differences. So the main similarity is the performance. It's really freaking quick. And although it's 0.2 of a second slower to 62 than a Golf R, you're not really going to notice it. The steering is also very, very precise and reacts really quickly. So if you are in a tight and twisty corner, the car will feel a lot more agile than it actually is, bearing in mind that we're in an SUV and it's big and it's heavy. But that's where the differences start to come in. Because this car is big, it just feels a little bit lazier and a little bit more reluctant compared to a Golf R. And you can even feel it at low speeds. I'm only doing 40 at the moment, but if I were to throw it around a little bit on this B road, you can just feel that the car, there's more mass going on. There's just a little bit more laziness to it than what you have on a Golf R, which naturally has a much lower center of gravity. So I'm going to whack it back into comfort mode and see how relaxed it is on the dual carriageway here. And we're back into Tiguan mode, essentially. Regular Tiguan, very smooth ride. And while in race mode it can feel a little bit bumpy on something like a B road, on here it's properly smooth. So does the Tiguan capture the magic of the Golf R? And the Golf R really is very good. When our review goes live of that, you can click the link in the top right hand corner to check it out and see what I think. Hint, I think it's really good. So does it capture the magic of the hatchback? I would say it's about 90% there. You've got that instant speed, which is just so remarkable in a car like this, and at this price point as well. It smokes pretty much all of its competitors. It's properly damn fast. And it does feel pretty good in the corners. There's a little bit of lean, but nothing too serious. And as we have those adaptive dampers, most of the time it's a very soft and relaxing ride. I would say the only things that let it down are the infotainment system. It's not great. I'm a bit disappointed that they don't give you the upgraded version in a car costing this much money. And then there's the fact that it costs nearly as much as a Porsche Macan. And really, I think the Macan is a better driver's car, and it's also more appealing. But then again, you also have the extensive Porsche list that'll tick lots of boxes and really ramp up that price. So I think the Tiguan R is a brilliant car. A little bit expensive, but of course you can head over to YesAuto.com to find all the latest deals on new, and when they become available, used Tiguan Rs. Because I'm sure in true German premium car fashion, prices will start to fall pretty soon after this thing goes on sale.